Welcome to the Emperor Dynamite Podcast, home of unchained free speech. Unleash your voice.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau declaring a public emergency for the first time in the country's history.
Hey there, and welcome to the Emperor Dynamite Podcast, where no topic is off limits, and this is the home of unchained free speech. Get ready for real talk, raw takes, and nothing held back. Today on the Emperor Dynamite Podcast, we're discussing China's support for Mark Carney. Known as the climate king and global finance expert, Carney is forming ties with one of the most authoritarian regimes. Is this about influence, power, or something else? Follow the money and politics to find out. Let's dive in. There's a tempest on the horizon of Canadian politics, and it's coming from the opposite side of the Pacific. As Mark Carney sets himself up as the next Prime Minister, one of the largest players seems to be oddly invested in his success: China. From glowing state media coverage to dubious disinformation campaigns and comfortable financial ties, all the signs are of a concerted push from Beijing to discreetly aid Carney's rise. China's enthusiasm for Mark Carney's rise is deliberate and strategic. It showcases a calculated decision to back a candidate with extensive financial connections and diplomatic leniency toward Beijing. Carney, a former central banker turned climate financier, spent years at Brookfield Asset Management, one of Canada's foremost investment firms, driving multi-billion-dollar deals with Chinese state-linked entities. Under his leadership, Brookfield ventured boldly into China, investing heavily in real estate and clean energy and forging a complex network of financial interdependence. This perception is precisely why Beijing deems him the ideal choice. Carney does not hold an ideological grudge against the Chinese Communist Party. Instead, he engages with the language of global capital, risk management, climate transition, and market efficiency. He presents himself as a pragmatist, someone with whom China can conduct business efficiently and without geopolitical complications. What is particularly alarming is Carney's consistent disregard for China's escalating interference in Canadian institutions, including documented disinformation campaigns supported by Chinese-controlled media. Rather than condemning this foreign interference, he often dismisses concerns as distractions, a response that critics interpret as a conscious choice to avoid confronting a power structure he has been financially tied to for years. At a pivotal moment when Canada requires assertive leadership to champion sovereignty and economic independence, Carney exemplifies an insider technocrat deeply enmeshed in the global elite, all while failing to take a firm stand against a regime increasingly willing to act with impunity. China doesn't merely want Carney to lead, they need him. His government would likely eliminate obstacles to their interests, creating an environment ripe for enhanced soft power influence, increased trade flexibility, and diminished accountability. For a nation as assertive as China, securing Carney's leadership is not just beneficial, it's essential. Chinese state media has given Mark Carney an unusual amount of positive publicity, drawing attention from analysts and critics. Outlets like the Global Times and Xinhua News Agency, controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, describe Carney as a pragmatic leader, economically literate, and a voice of global financial stability. These descriptions are intentional, portraying him as a reliable partner for Beijing. Unlike the negative coverage often directed at Western leaders, the media's treatment of Carney has been respectful. Reports highlight his global experience, expertise in climate finance, and a moderate stance on China policy. Such favorable depictions are rare, suggesting that Carney is seen as someone who won't challenge Beijing's interests. This favorable portrayal influences public perception among Chinese-speaking global communities, especially in Canada. By echoing the narrative of Chinese state media, these stories present Carney as not only a qualified candidate, but also as someone committed to stabilizing international relations, prioritizing cooperation over confrontation with China. Chinese. State media has granted Mark Carney an unprecedented amount of positive publicity, a move that's left eyebrows raised among analysts and critics. Newspapers like the Global Times and Xinhua News Agency, both of which are heavily controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, have described Carney as a pragmatic leader, economically literate, and a voice of global financial stability. These are not accidental descriptions. They're part of a calculated narrative meant to present Carney as someone Beijing can do business with. In contrast to often vitriolic attacks on Western leaders, Chinese reporting on Carney has always been respectful and supportive. News stories have highlighted his global background, his credentials in climate finance, and his perceived moderation of China policy. This feating is rare. Flattering depictions are not offered by China to Western politicians unless there is a strategic necessity, and in Carney's case, the message is obvious. He's viewed as someone who won't rock the boat toward Beijing. This spin in media also affects popular opinion among Chinese-speaking global communities, most particularly in Canada. In reporting reflective of the narrative of Chinese state media, such stories quietly shape attitudes in presenting Carney as not only a qualified candidate, but a champion of stabilizing global international relations. Cover for one willing to forego confrontation with China. A quiet but forceful recommendation embedded in the semantics of diplomacy and international cooperation. We must insist on absolute transparency from Mark Carney, who has held some of the most powerful monetary positions in the world. First, as governor of the Bank of Canada and then as governor of the Bank of England. His subsequent influence in ESG finance and global climate policy only heightens this expectation. Carney isn't just a figure in a suit. He has significantly shaped monetary policy, advised the United Nations, and spearheaded the global green finance agenda. Given his credentials, we can't ignore that conflicts of interest are not merely possible. They're practically a certainty unless he can clearly demonstrate otherwise. Yet, we're expected to accept that he is acting in our best interest, while any scrutiny of his investments, private equity ties, or lucrative consulting roles is brushed off as an unwarranted invasion. This hypocrisy is striking when he lectures us about economic inequality, sustainability, and corporate responsibility, all while promoting ESG ratings and carbon markets that are so easily manipulated for profit. If anyone knows how to exploit the system, it's him. If Carney is genuinely committed to shaping the future of capitalism and climate finance, then he needs to come forward with complete transparency. He should reveal his investments, where they are held, and who stands to benefit from them. The alternative is to leave us with the impression that there are indeed two sets of rules, one for the elite and another for everyone else. There is so much at stake in entrusting our country to someone like Mark Carney, who holds more secrets than he reveals. For decades, he has navigated the shadows, interacting with global leaders, traveling between central banks, participating in UN committees, and engaging in ESG summits. Now is the time to step into national leadership with full transparency. If he talks about being committed to transparency, climate justice, and economic equality, he needs to back it up with action. We deserve to know the truth about his financial strategies, power decisions, and the real beneficiaries of his green initiatives. True leadership is founded on trust, not deception. He should earn our trust and our vote by opening the books and showing his sincere dedication to all Canadians. The current approach creates an illusion of credibility to promote the same top-down policies under the guise of climate leadership, fiscal responsibility, and global cooperation. However, behind the scenes, it's more of the same: concentrated power, backroom deals, and a government that seems more accountable to Davos than to Canadians. If Carney steps in, we won't just see a new leader. We would be ushering in Trudeau, Oh, equipped with a more polished public relations strategy, but even fewer solutions. Canadians truly deserve better than a simple baton pass in a flawed race. It's time to rise up, speak out, get involved. If we don't act now, we risk not just repeating the mistakes of the past, but surrendering our future to those who have rigged the game from the outset. Canada belongs to you, not to the Carneys, the Trudeaus, or the boardrooms they serve. Let's make our voices heard and remind them of that truth.
Why is the government of China actively promoting Mark Carney's campaign? Mark Carney says he has no idea.
Absolutely no idea, and I have absolutely no idea, and I think I'll leave it at that.
But when you look into it, the reasons become pretty obvious. For years, Mark Carney has called for China to have more dominance over the global economy.
One of the many strengths of China is their perspective.
And it'll be important that China is center stage to shape this new global, sustainable financial system.
We see China's leadership there in deployment of AI technologies, which is in many respects unique, and we can all learn from that.
While running Brookfield, Carney put his views into practice, significantly expanding the company's operations in China. And shortly before leaving the company to run for prime minister, Carney took out a $250 million loan from the Bank of China. And he's continued to promote China's interests on the campaign trail. He's promoted the industrial carbon tax, which will help destroy industrial jobs in Canada and ship them to China. He's offered no plan to crack down on criminal gangs, including gangs directed by foreign governments to intimidate immigrants on our soil. He refused to fire an MP who called for his opponent to be handed over to the Chinese consulate for a bounty until the RCMP got involved.
$1 million reward on his head. So they want, if you guys want to pick him up and take him to the Chinese consulate, you make him $1 million.
And after that, he just got a new candidate who is also openly pro-China. And now, in the midst of China promoting his campaign, Carney refuses to condemn their actions. Share this video so that Canadians know the truth about Mark Carney's China connections.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more.